Thank you, Presiding Officer. I am delighted to have the opportunity to speak in the final debate before Parliament votes on the Scottish Government's budget. A budget that will benefit all who live in the Renfrewshire South constituency that I am honoured to represent in this Parliament. When I vote for this budget, I will be voting for over £1.8 million of pupil equity funds to go directly to schools across Renfrewshire South. £121,000 for Carley-Bar Primary and £109,000 for St Mark's Primary, both in my hometown of Barrhead. £104,000 for Johnson High School in the town where my constituency office is based, and £141,000 for Woodland Primary and £190,000 for the River Brae Special School, both in Linwood, a town that was cast on the scrap heap by a previous Tory government, but is now 10 years into a regeneration process begun by an SNP-led Renfrewshire Council under my colleague Derek Mackay. Presiding Officer, schools of the length and breadth of my Renfrewshire South constituency and across Scotland have and will continue to benefit from attainment funds. I've had the privilege of meeting with staff and pupils from across my constituency and have seen firsthand the benefits of PEF money through a range of interventions such as specialised staff and additional activities which enrich and enhance the learning environment. Presiding Officer, I also wish to put on record my support for the Government's continued investment in the NHS, an additional £400 million in this budget, taking total health spending to some £13.1 billion. And as the son of a nurse and a NHS estates officer, both now retired, I am delighted at this Government's commitment to lifting the public sector pay cap. Presiding Officer, there's one further point I wish to make on health spending, and that is how it is spent and the fundamental importance of how spending decisions are made in health. It is my view that one of the SNP government's finest achievements was the delivery of the publicly owned Queen Elizabeth University Hospital, and I wish in particular to highlight the £40 million of investment over recent years in the Institute of Neurological Sciences on the Queen Elizabeth campus. This is a worldwide centre of excellence that practices cutting-edge medicine, and I know this directly. In May of last year, Presiding Officer, my brother collapsed at his home in Barrhead. He was rushed by ambulance to the RAH. There he received exemplary treatment by the accident and emergency care team and the on-call consultant who suspected a brain hemorrhage. My brother was then quickly transferred by ambulance to the Institute of Neurological Sciences at the Queen Elizabeth campus, where a subarachnoid hemorrhage was diagnosed. Within a matter of hours, he was in surgery. Having lost a close friend to a subarachnoid hemorrhage a few years ago, my family and I feared the worst. However, Presiding Officer, 3 weeks later my brother was back in college and passing exams with flying colours. His remarkable recovery was made possible by the incredible NHS staff who treated him. These staff, in turn, benefited from a government that invests money in our health service and, crucially, listens to the advice of clinicians on how that money should be invested. Presiding Officer, before concluding, I wish also to reiterate my backing for this budget support for our creative sector, particularly given the reductions from the National Lottery. I also wish to commend the decision to significantly increase the economy portfolio budget and continue support for small business, demonstrating that this government is indeed one that is determined to support economic growth. All of this, however, has been achieved against the negative actions of the UK government. Presiding Officer, the UK government is cutting the Scottish Government's resource budget by some £500 million over the next 2 years. This, as everyone but the Tories seem to understand, is the budget that pays for the day-to-day running of our public services. This also includes paying the salaries of public sector employees like nurses, firefighters and police officers. This £500 million budget reduction in itself should also be understood in the broader context of almost a decade of austerity implemented by the UK government. This is a challenge not only to the government, but to all of us in this place, which is, after all, a parliament of minorities. And I commend the Greens for their pragmatism and for rising to this challenge. It's disappointing, but unsurprising that Labour chose not to engage constructively in this process. As for the Tories, they have failed ultimately to produce a fiscally and politically coherent proposition. Now, Tories, of course, reflexively wish to slash taxes for high earners and shrink the state. Now, I fundamentally disagree with this approach, but it does at least represent a school of thought that can be subjected to scrutiny and debate. However, the current Tory proposition of simultaneously calling for tax cuts on the one hand and increased public spending warrants not debate, but ridicule. Presiding Officer, in the end, politics comes down to values and choices, and nowhere does this become more apparent than in the setting of a budget. The reality is that the Tories won't admit what they cut, and Labour don't have a set of proposals that would meet the rigorous standards of the Scottish Fiscal Commission. In contrast, this budget put forward by Derek Mackay shows a government that puts progressive values into action. A government that is committed to protecting and strengthening public services, a government that supports business and economic growth, and a government committed to ensuring that every child has the opportunity to succeed. This is a budget that works for my constituents in Renfrewshire South and for all of Scotland, and I look forward to supporting it this evening.
Thank you very much.